Thanks for stopping by Big Top Gaming. My name's Brian, and it's been a while since I've said that. Not my name, but at least an introduction to the channel. It has been a hot minute, but I've just come back from Adepticon. This is about 2 weeks ago now, roughly, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because there was quite a bit that happened there that really kind of invigorated me, much like Adepticon does for most of us wargamers. First off, the venue moved to Milwaukee, which is not too far from me. I do live in Wisconsin, and that is from Schaumburg. So I do miss going to like Mitsuwa. That's really one of the things that I'll miss about the Schaumburg area, and I know I'll go down there on my own just to hit that store up. The food court there is really good, and it's a nice chance to get some East Asian groceries then when you can't get them locally, like black vinegar. I can't get it around me, so I usually go there. But the venue was the Baird Center, and the thing I liked about this was at the old Adepticon, if you didn't get ground zero hotel accommodations, you had to get shuttled in or drive in yourself from a little bit of a ways away. There wasn't a huge concentration of extra hotels around there that weren't just packed from shuttling. But in the Baird Center, there's like tons of hotels that are just all around that little downtown area. So I was able to go to like 3 or 4 different hotels just by walking around to get to them. And parking was pretty ample too. That was another thing that I really appreciated about it. Too many times I'd take my day trips to Schaumburg and find out I have to park in between like a dumpster and a raccoon that won't give up its spot. It was difficult to try and find anything. You'd be driving around in circles for almost an hour just to find something. You're better off parking somewhere else and getting an Uber into the place. But at the Baird Center, there was so much parking around, whether you were going into like the hotel's parking. Some of them had valet you could pay for, and then there was a public parking area too that was just massive. And those were really good options, at least for me, for going down there for a couple days. So overall, I really do like the move to Milwaukee. Not just I am super biased because it's just a little bit closer, but it really only shaves off like 45 minutes from my drive, so it's not a huge bias, right? But very excited. I think a lot of people were really happy with the Baird Center or the move to Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee kind of gets a bad rap as being really an unsafe area, but that particular area of Milwaukee just isn't something where you really have to concern yourself too much with that, at least from my experience. So I think the Adepticon folks made a good move by kicking over to the Baird Center, and they're going to be there next year. So I'm looking forward to trying to secure like a 4-day stay and do my first ever like full Adepticon stay, because I still haven't stayed for the whole weekend. I'm pretty sure I haven't. Yeah, pretty sure. For this next section, I want to talk about the things that I had seen at Adepticon that excited me gaming-wise. I think it's really common for anyone who goes to Adepticon to just kind of walk away with either a renewed sense of interest in something that they've messed with beforehand, or getting totally enraptured by something new, or just really feeling, you know, more solidified in the things that they're already engaging in. And I'm not an exception to this rule of Adepticon, I guess I could say. So first up is Malediction, and this is a game that I admittedly I backed it fully on GameFound, and I was at first kind of iffy on whether the game would really take off in the area. There wasn't a ton of support up front, but as the game got closer to release, and especially over Adepticon, I think folks started to really see the value in Loot Studios' attempt at a miniature war game, which they're kind of doing miniature war game plus card game. I don't, if you'd call it an MCG maybe. But the Malediction in general it combines deck building elements with wargaming elements. So you have like a resource that you can utilize to summon or cast or summon the cards that you've got available to you, and they become miniatures on the table that you then use to fight over the game-winning resource or the husks. And you can enhance those through like spells, relics you get from your husks, or equipment that you play on your models. So I wanted to call out Loot Studios specifically because I believe this is one of the first times they're entering this, or not one of the first times, it's like the first time they're entering this realm of wargaming. And typically, I think when you see that from companies, they kind of have a not limp-wristed approach, but they're a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Like more reserved approach to coming to the conventions. They want their stuff out there, but they're not going to pull out all the stops. That was not the case with Loot Studios. Their booth was vibrant, bright and white. Lights were everywhere. Every single small demo stand was lit with its own specific light, and each stand had its own demo person. So you, at least from what I had seen while I was there, there wasn't like a whole lot of back and forth of juggling the different demo tables and feeling like you're getting left behind. They were selling things there too. And the interesting thing about Malediction that makes it such a unique thing for the industry, and I know Trench Crusade has done this, but their box set comes with like little standees, but then all of the miniatures are STLs. So you get the code and you go to their website, download the files from them, and then start printing them on your own. I think that's really unique and a very like agile thing, if you want to use that phrase, in business. They don't have to worry about production of the models. They don't have to worry about how they need to package or ship them. They're just available for people to do on their own. And then people who do want to print them, they feel a little bit more empowered, right? Because if you break something, lose something, you've got those files available to you to print some more off. So from a sales standpoint at the booth, things were really great too. Everything that you could have gotten on the Kickstarter was there, except for maybe a few like the exclusive sculpts that they have built into the Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, the Game Found, that hasn't fully come to fruition just yet. But you get the mat, which I had picked up because I didn't have that in my Game Found. But they also had something that I wish they would have had available on the Game Found, was instead of getting the box with all of the cardboard standees and the cutouts of the terrain, you could just get a box that had the cards and the STL, and I think maybe a D20 or something like that. I don't know if they had like the tokens in there that you would use, but that seemed like it was a little bit cheaper than getting all the cardboard. And for me, most of the cardboard's either going to go to some of my friends locally if they want to get into the game, or it's just going to get recycled because I don't really have much of a use for it. So that's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time for them. But if you're interested in learning more about Malediction, I leave a comment in the section below the video here, and I'll find some time to talk about it later, because I do think it's a really amazing game. Plays on a smaller table, so you can play on your standard like card table at a game store, and it's fairly quick too, and the models are really sweet too. I think Loot Studios, they had like it was like a 2-foot tall version of one of the bigger size models from their range. It was Thundersteps, and his little like Cyclops eye was lit up. It was really cool. And the other thing that I want to mention about Loot Studios as well was that the attitude of the staff was like on point. All the demo folks were just happy to be doing things. When I had come across Fabio, because if you're from the Ice and Fire world, he's now one of their lead developers, or the lead developer for this game. And it was just, he was always vibrating with excitement that they were just experiencing so much success, and there was so many people there wanting to check out the game, so many people playing. It was just really great to see that kind of like reciprocal energy. We even the person who checked us out when I bought my playmat was the person who was responsible for deploying the models, right? Like not deploying them on the table, but deploying the STLs. And they were like apologizing for any kind of like slowdowns. They were like, oh, it takes about 3 minutes to download, and I'm trying to fix that. And I'm like, well, that's, whatever. They're already downloaded and printing at my house. But it was a really amazing experience. And I think Loot Studios came there and they just threw their elbows and said, we are entering this market and we're ready to do a lot of really great things in it. So personally, I'm looking forward to more Malediction games. I think I've played 5 or 6 so far since coming back from Adepticon, and it's just been an absolute blast. So definitely check the game out, and if you want to learn more about it, just let me know and I'll start making some videos on it. So the next thing that got me excited is an interesting one, because it's really the driving force behind me wanting to make this video and kind of re-engage with content again on YouTube, is Warmachine. So this channel was born out of A Song of Ice and Fire, but then as Warmachine became more prevalent in my life, it really transformed into being more about Warmachine at the time. At least the battle reports, right? Like we played so many games on here, almost had weekly battle reports being published, and we just really enjoyed doing what we were doing here. And the trade-off from Mark III to Mark IV was not handled real well, in my opinion, and in many others. And for me, it really kind of just, that plus pandemic stuff just really shot the game down. I guess I can't even blame pandemic, because like we were kind of like in it at that point, you know, and we were figuring out ways to work around it, at least from what I recall. So Warmachine, why is Warmachine exciting to me right now? So I think a lot of this just has to do with Steamforged Games' overall attitude and presentation of the game at Adepticon. So Steamforged Games they bought Privateer Press. They don't run Bartertown, so to speak, because I think the old Privateer staff still does a lot of the development, production, things like that. So I don't know exactly what the driving forces from Steamforged are that are in Warmachine right now. That's not something that I'm privy to or understand. Maybe someone else out there in the universe can explain it better than I can. But the Steamforged has so many other things that they get into. They do a lot of board games. They make miniatures for D&D. They do Guild Ball kind of isn't a thing they make anymore, but they're kind of embracing it a little bit. At least last I had touched base with it. But with all of that said, they have so many things, board games, etc. Like I just covered it. So when you went to Adepticon and saw their booth, it was big. It was a lot bigger than it had been in the past when Privateer was running it. I remember once going to Adepticon and finding the Warmachine booth and basically like a stall, like an outhouse size or like a porta potty sized little booth. And, that was kind of like it was shocking for me when I had seen that compared to what they used to be. But Steamforged had a really bright lit booth. They had like the white backing and everything. And they had TVs showing like their models and their packaged product. They had demo tables, like little small, like 1x1s maybe 1.5 by 1.5 podiums. They reminded me a lot of like the Mark III launch, like display things that they would send to stores back in the day. But they had these with some of the models out on them. They had a nice little painted model cabinet. But the only thing that was there was Warmachine. There was no trying to shill Bardsung or any of their other video game board games. It was just Warmachine. Really, I think between that and the keynote really got me, because before we went to Adepticon, I think I watched the keynote first. And that got me really excited for how Steamforged was approaching the game. They were like, this is going to be the main feature for us for right now. And when you went to the booth, that's really what it looked like they were doing. They had the P3 paints as well. I should say that too. But there's just a lot of really interesting and exciting things. And, there's a lot of things that Steamforged is doing that I would have never really thought Privateer would do. I mean, we had heard for so long, and I'm trying not to turn this into a rag on PP session, but we'd heard for so long starter set, or 2-player starter set, and it just couldn't happen. And I know this probably happened under PP, maybe. I'm not sure. Like, again, I'm not super entrenched in the history of all these things, but there's a plastic starter set for Warmachine for the focus users, so Khador versus Signar, and then there's a plastic set for shards, like it's the new Legion, Mecha Legion, or Shadow Flame, I think, I can't remember, and then Brine Bloods, their new Troll Blood stuff. And I had gotten a hold of the Khador half of one of the starters. A friend and I went in on it. And when I built the kits, I was thinking that I might have gotten something like the old Kodiak kits that we had that were that GW style plastic where you would get teardrop rivets. And I didn't get any of that. Every detail was crisp. Everything was engineered really well. There wasn't anything where the piece was wonky or anything like that. They went together easily. And I didn't have to use instructions to build them because of the naming conventions that they used, or labeling conventions that they used on the pieces. Like, everything went together really, really well. So now I think I'll probably just have to get a second set to get a hold of the Signar stuff, because I would really like that. And I'm definitely not opposed to getting the Fury side of the Warmachine starter. So that was really exciting to see. On top of that, I remember when PP went to 3D printing right away, and people were like, I can just print those at home, blah, 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 give me the files. And that's not how companies make money, or at least that not how they used to make money, because now we can see that like Loot Studios is doing pretty well. They got a $500,000, almost $600,000 Game Found campaign, and Trench Crusade went easily over $1 million. So you can make money off of selling STLs. But Steamforged has launched a My Mini Factory campaign where you get a cadre, which is just like a 30-point list with a bunch of character stuff for joining that. It's a bunch of cephalic stuff. So one caster, 2 solos, a unit, and 1 named monstrosity. And those can get played into the Crick stuff for the Necrofactorium, I think is how it's pronounced. I think it's Necrofactorium. So they're looking at releasing more of those in the future. They haven't really given us a clear roadmap on what things look like. We also had gotten an alternate caster in Signar. But on top of that, we got a bunch of files for terrain and base toppers. The base toppers are kind of meh. Not that they look bad or anything, but like you have to kind of resize them for different bases. They did release a file for bases to be printed, but in my opinion, I don't really think they fit the best on there. There's still like a little weird gap, and I like my base toppers to look better. So you're better off meshing them together in like Mesh Mixer or Blender or whatever you kit bash with. But so that was really neat. The terrain is cool because I think for so long, Warmachine has been like 2D all the time because we've been so competitively focused, and 3D terrain just was very obnoxious to a lot of competitive players. And when we came to organizing events, it was a lot easier to carry around a book bag or a box full of 2D terrain than it was 3D stuff. So I think that providing folks with Warmachine terrain that's 3D, it really helps kind of give Steamforged control over their game. Like they get to find way, if people are printing that stuff, they get to populate the table with those pieces, and it looks cool, and people see the game and they think it looks neat. So I think that's another good move. Another one that's cool is there's a painting competition that's going on right now in My Mini Factory as well, where you pick one. It's not you pick one. They prescribe that you use a particular drudge, but then you can use some other models that were in the 3D printed My Mini Factory Tribe release, and you can also use something else that you've purchased from Steamforged. So there's 3 or 4 different categories, because I think Diorama's in there too. That opened recently and closes on June 30th. So if you're a painter and want to get into it, it's definitely worth doing. I've done 3 My Mini Factory painting campaigns so far. I haven't won any of them or placed, but this one I've got a lot of like invested interest in because Warmachine's so near and dear to my heart. So I also had my first game of Mark IV ever, and that was last weekend, I believe. I played Saverin. I'm back on my Khador stuff, and I just absolutely had a blast. Like I started it, some of it was clunky getting used to the rules again, and some of the changes with like the unit movement and running being like +5 and things like that. But I really enjoyed it. And the only thing that I missed was that it didn't seem like there was really a good way to generate scenario at a 50-point level. We just didn't seem like Steamroller was going to work for us, so we just kind of played the assassination game, and that was that. But I'm super excited to be getting back in. I'd like to see the area kind of get more interested in Warmachine, so I don't know how I'm going to plug into that, but I really enjoy the prospect of getting back into it. Warmachine was the only game that I really traveled regionally for or across our country. And none of the other games that I've picked up in between then have made me want to do that as frequently. And there's just something about Warmachine, the design of the game, the design of the models, the background of it that I got into. I just really like it. And I'm extremely happy to kind of rediscovered that love for Warmachine again. I know I definitely had some like toxic influences coming at me in my own little circle of people when I got out of Warmachine that really kind of like pushed that. So I'm happy to just kind of block a lot of that out now. And I'm like, if you're not into it, then that's fine. Like you got burnt in Mark III to Mark IV, and that's okay. You can keep that and hold it as long as you want. But I'm going to go and enjoy myself and play this game that I've had fun with for a really long time. So I'm looking forward to seeing some old friends and throwing some models on the table and just playing Warmachine again. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me ramble on for 20 minutes. And in terms of the future of the channel, I'm really looking forward to doing more Warmachine content as I start to get my sea legs back, so to speak. I don't think I understand the approach to the game right now enough to be able to talk about it a ton. Battle reports are definitely not off the table. I just need to get willing parties who want to engage in that kind of content. But Malediction is definitely something that I'm interested in talking more about, and I'm super excited for 4th edition for Malifaux. That's another thing that I didn't really touch on here. Mostly Weird kind of disappointed me at Adepticon. They didn't really have anything interesting or new or whatever, and it makes sense because the announcement of 4th edition today really made it seem like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that at Adepticon. I think historically, when most people introduce a new addition to their game, the sales kind of die down, so I get why they wouldn't want to do that there. But that's another thing I'm looking forward to, is kind of like unraveling what ME4 is going to be like for Malifaux. So I think Warmachine's stoked enough of my content creation interest to really get back into this. And if there's anything you're interested in hearing from my perspective, feel free to leave a comment below. Otherwise, thanks again for watching this video, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.